Let's start with what most traders won't notice because it doesn't move price. Stellar Protocol version 25 just went live on Pi Mainnet. The upgrade includes new X-ray privacy system improvements and zero-knowledge proof optimization. Now, if you're thinking, this sounds boring and technical, you're exactly right. It is boring and technical, and that's precisely why it matters. Here's what you need to understand. Privacy in cryptocurrency isn't just about hiding transactions from the government. Privacy is infrastructure. It's the foundation that enables entire categories of applications that can't exist on transparent blockchain. Think about enterprise applications, financial institutions, healthcare data, supply chain transparency, where you want certain parties to see certain information but not everything. You can't build those applications on a completely transparent blockchain. You need selective disclosure. You need privacy that's cryptographically verified. So, Stellar version 25 enables exactly that through improved zero-knowledge proofs. Zero-knowledge proofs basically allow for verification without revealing the underlying data. Now, that's not really exciting for retail traders, but for institutions that are building real applications, that's foundational infrastructure. Alright, so here's what the upgrade actually accomplishes. It makes zero-knowledge proof systems both faster and cheaper to execute on the network. This matters enormously because, honestly, ZK proofs are computationally expensive. On most blockchains, they're actually prohibitively expensive. You can have privacy, sure, but you either pay massive transaction fees or the system just, grinds to a halt. Stellar version 25 addressed that directly. Faster execution, lower costs, and, smoother migration for applications that already use zero-knowledge features. So, what does that enable? Well, it means developers can actually build privacy-preserving applications without those applications becoming economically unviable. It also means Pi can connect to the wider zero-knowledge ecosystem and support applications that other blockchains struggle to accommodate. This is infrastructure maturation. It's not about price, it's about capability. Now let's talk about something that might be more immediately impactful. Pi App Studio's new no-code payment tool. Think about what this means in practical terms. You can now create an application that accepts Pi payments without writing code, without learning smart contracts, without understanding blockchain fundamentals. You just use guided, simple steps. That removes one of the biggest barriers to blockchain adoption: technical expertise. Most blockchain projects, require developers to understand smart contracts. They require programming knowledge. They require technical sophistication that, honestly, most potential creators just don't have. So, adoption stays limited to developers. I inverted that. Now, non-technical creators can build applications that accept Pi. Small business owners can create payment systems. Game developers can monetize games without blockchain knowledge. And service providers can build tools that accept Pi. That's not a small change. That's the foundation for ecosystem expansion. So, the browser version 1.15.0 update, well, it sounds pretty unremarkable at first. It's mostly about stability improvements, performance enhancements, and, support for the latest system changes. On the surface, it might look a little boring, but honestly, this is actually critical infrastructure maintenance. Here's what really matters. The Pi ecosystem relies on the Pi browser as the main interface between users and applications. Any change to the browser affects every single application running on Pi. And, well, any instability in the browser can destabilize the entire ecosystem. So, seemingly small updates like this are actually foundational. They're ensuring that as more applications launch and as more creators build on Pi, the infrastructure can handle that growth without, collapsing. This is the unglamorous work that separates projects that actually scale from projects that, honestly, overpromise and underdeliver. Parallel to all this, Pi is continuing mainnet mapping and node operations in the background. This is infrastructure work that generates, honestly, zero excitement. It doesn't move price, it doesn't create FOMO, but it's what determines whether the network can actually handle transaction volume when real adoption arrives. Mapping ensures that accounts are properly distributed across the network. Node work ensures network security and decentralization. These are the foundational tasks that make everything else possible. Alright, if this breakdown of Pi's infrastructure expansion just changed how you think about which blockchain projects are actually positioned for real ecosystem adoption, you need to understand the deeper mechanics of how infrastructure compounds over 12 to 24-month timelines. Most creators talk about price targets and hype cycles, but there's an entire intermediate layer where, honestly, boring infrastructure developments create exponential adoption potential. If this analysis of Stellar V25, zero-knowledge proofs, no-code payments, and browser stability helped you see why infrastructure updates matter more than price excitement, smash that like button right now. It tells YouTube this deep infrastructure analysis matters, and it helps us push this kind of boring but important analysis to more people who actually want to understand which projects are building real ecosystems instead of running casino games. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. When blockchain projects execute infrastructure expansions, we analyze what that means for real adoption. We break down the difference between hype and actual network development in ways most channels won't touch. Let's keep going. Let's understand what's actually happening here. Pi is executing a specific expansion framework. Foundation layer, Stellar Protocol V25 provides privacy infrastructure and cost optimization. This is the base that enables advanced applications. Developer layer, App Studio, with no-code payment tools, removes technical barriers. This is what enables creators to build applications. User layer, Browser 1.15.0 provides stability and performance for the user experience. This is what enables users to actually use those applications. Network layer, mapping and node work ensure the infrastructure can handle scale. That's a coherent expansion strategy. It's not random, it's not improvised, it's methodical infrastructure building. Here's something critical to understand: price movements don't correlate with infrastructure development timelines. Pi could release Stellar V25, Browser 1.15.0, and no-code payment tools, major infrastructure updates, and the price could stay completely flat. In fact, that's exactly what happens with most infrastructure upgrades. Why? Because infrastructure updates don't create speculation, they don't create FOMO. They don't create the narrative excitement that moves short-term price. But infrastructure updates are what eventually create real adoption. And real adoption is what creates sustainable price appreciation. So, projects that prioritize infrastructure over hype tend to have boring price action combined with accelerating adoption. That's actually the most bullish setup possible, because when the market finally realizes what's happening, price catches up to fundamentals extremely quickly. Pi has 15.8 million mainnet users. That's not retail speculators. That's people with actual accounts on the network, people with actual Pi tokens, people with actual stake in the ecosystem, and these updates aren't for speculators, they're for ecosystem builders. On the Stellar V25 upgrade, that's for developers building private, secure applications. The no-code payment tools, that's for creators who want to build without learning blockchain development. The browser improvements, that's for users who need reliable infrastructure. These updates directly address ecosystem development. They enable the next wave of application creation. Here's the distinction that matters. Pi is choosing real utility over hype utility. Real utility means people actually using the network for real transactions, builders actually creating applications, users making real purchases. Hype utility means media coverage, celebrity endorsements, price speculation, community enthusiasm. Most blockchain projects chase hype utility because it's faster. You can manufacture media coverage, you can coordinate influencer campaigns, you can create excitement. But hype utility doesn't last. When the excitement fades, the network collapses because there's nothing underneath. Real utility is slower. It's boring. It requires patience. But when it exists, the network becomes resilient. Pi is clearly choosing real utility over hype utility. The updates confirm that. Infrastructure expansion, privacy improvements, developer accessibility tools. These aren't hype plays. These are foundation building. Alright, so here's what I want you to walk away with. Pi network is moving in silence. Stellar Protocol V25, Browser 1.15.0, no-code payment tools, mapping and node work. These aren't exciting announcements. They're not going to create price spikes. But they're what actually builds ecosystems. The crypto community is obsessed with hype, price predictions, and narrative excitement. And while that's happening, Pi is quietly expanding infrastructure, removing technical barriers for developers, improving privacy capabilities, enhancing network stability. 15.8 million mainnet users are watching this happen. They're not waiting for hype. They're waiting for the next applications that these infrastructure improvements enable. When enough applications exist, when enough creators build on Pi, when real transaction volume accumulates, that's when the market finally recognizes what's been building in the background. Will that happen? Nobody knows. Real adoption is always uncertain, but the infrastructure being built right now is what makes that adoption possible. For investors willing to ignore price noise and understand infrastructure development, Pi Network represents something genuinely different from most blockchain projects. Thanks for watching TJ Crypto World. If this breakdown of Pi's infrastructure expansion and why boring updates matter more than hype helped you understand the difference between real ecosystem development and casino token building, please drop a comment below. Do you think Pi's quiet infrastructure approach will eventually dominate over projects chasing hype? And before you leave, check out our latest video on how blockchain ecosystems actually scale. I break down the exact infrastructure requirements that separate projects with real adoption potential from projects that are just running marketing campaigns. The link is pinned in the comments. Stay analytical, stay focused on infrastructure, and I'll see you in the next one.